In 1994, I was asked to visit one of the most famous men on the planet at that time. He had the largest television evangelistic ministry in the world in the 1980s. He committed fraud, was arrested and prosecuted, sentenced for 45 years. They reduced it later to 5 years. His trial, his conviction, and his trip to the penitentiary was aired every single day on CNN. So he had read the first book that I had written in prison, and he asked someone to call me and ask if I would, his assistant to call and see if I would come and visit him in the prison. When I walked in the prison, I'll never forget it. Here's a man, he's older than me. He grabs me and he holds me and he won't let me go. Grabs me by the shoulders. He said, "Did you write this book or a ghostwriter?" I said, "I wrote every word. I've been through a wilderness, but not near what you've been through." He said, "We have so much to talk about." I'm sitting across the table from him. The very first thing he said is, he said, "John, this prison was not God's judgment on my life. It was His mercy." He said, "John, if I continued to live the way I was living, I would have been separated from God forever. I would have been in the lake of fire forever." When he said that, I realized, okay, I'm listening to a man of God. He told me how Jesus came into his prison cell and delivered him his first year of prison. He said, "There was so much evil in my life." He said, "John, we study the Bible every day for at least 3 hours. We have a church here in the prison." He told me I don't. I said, "Well, obviously you lead the church." He said, "No, I don't. I will not do it. I was a master manipulator before. I am not going back, because if I ever go back, I'm done." And he said, "So I'm not leading it. One of the other prisoners is leading the church." So after he told the story and I felt comfortable enough, I said, "I have questions. Can I ask you one of my biggest questions?" He said, "Sure." I said, "When did you fall out of love with Jesus?" I said, "In the early 80s, when I would watch you, you would weep as you would preach. Your passion for Jesus, your love with Jesus was so strong. When did you fall out of love with Jesus?" And he looked at me and he said, "John, I didn't." Then I got a little upset and my walls went up again. And I said, "Hold on a minute. You committed adultery," and I named the woman he committed adultery with, in 1983. You were arrested in 1990. You're living totally an ungodly life all 7 of those years. What do you mean you didn't fall out of love with Jesus?" He said, "John, I loved him all the way through it." And he sees confusion on my face. And he said, "John, I didn't fear God." And he said, "John, there are millions of Americans like me. They love Jesus, but they don't fear Him."